attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. My name is Tina Turner and I work in the Mission Resource Development Office of American Baptist Churches. Before beginning our presentation this afternoon, I want to mention a few housekeeping issues. I'd like to let you know that during the webinar, all attendees are in listen-only mode. This is to prevent any feedback or background noise from disrupting the sound quality. Since you are not able to be heard, we ask that you use the questions panel found on the GoToWebinar menu to submit questions throughout today's presentation. Jennifer, our presenter, will leave time throughout the presentation to respond to your questions. We are recording this presentation and will make it available online later this month. Now I'd like to introduce ABC USA President Judy Fackenthal. Welcome, Judy. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Tina. Hi, folks. It is a joy to be with you today. I am very grateful to Technology Therapies Group for their willingness to work with us and host this webinar. They have been guiding us through a process of examining how we talk about United Mission. And one of the ways we talk about United Mission is by providing these opportunities to let us all grow together in our skills and our gifts so that we can be better servants of Christ, better able to share the news of God's love and mercy with the world by using our technology wisely. So thank you very much to Jennifer Shaheen and her group for guiding us through this today. I would like to begin with a word of prayer for us. Would you join me in prayer, please? God of grace and mercy, how thankful we are for the gift of technology and the ability to come together from all across our American Baptist family to join today in learning more about how to use technology to transform the ministries of our local churches. We ask for your Spirit's guidance, Lord, as we go through this time together. We pray for Jennifer, for blessings on her as she leads us. We give you thanks for Tina, who has helped to arrange this. We ask that our hearts would be open, that our minds would be clear, that we would be free of distractions and able to learn as your Spirit guides us. We ask this all in the name of Christ, who is our Lord and guide. Amen. Jennifer, then I ask that you help lead us through.
Thank you so much, Judy, and thank you all for being here today. I so appreciate your time and energy. And as Judy mentioned, my name is Jennifer Shaheen, and my company has been blessed to be a part of United Mission and creating this campaign. But today we are talking about how we can use technology to help transform ministry. And so as Tina mentioned as we started, feel free to put questions in. As you think of them, I will be pausing per section. And the first thing I want to talk about today is, the idea that, the fact I found this cartoon a while ago and I just thought it was a great piece because, oh man, today we are just surrounded by technology. A friend of mine actually posted on Facebook, go out and live the life that you are viewing on Facebook. And I thought, how funny and how silly. And you can see this little cartoon that I pulled up is someday computers will take over our lives. And the woman asks, someday? And I don't know if you're all feeling this way, but I know I am. I happen to be a child of and love digital technology. I am not a millennial, sadly. I am not part of that generation. I am a Gen Xer, and I, cry and say, because I'm really more a millennial when it comes to technology. I really have a joy and a passion for it. So for me, one of the things that I got a chance to do at the biennial last year was to talk to so many people about the different things in connecting generations and also technology. And so one of the things I want to talk a little bit about today is the concept of live streaming. It's funny because if you ask this question a year ago, the technology has been there for quite a while. As a matter of fact, one of the platforms that has been around for a great many years is something called Livestream. And Livestream is a platform that I've actually personally used to broadcast conferences for other organizations. So we've actually used this technology to broadcast a conference where you are going to actually pay a fee and watch the conference remotely. So this is one of the tools that has existed for a really long time. The way live streaming originally worked is essentially you would have a regular camcorder that was connected into a computer, and then you would run the internet through. So you would have to have a really fast connection to do live streaming. And I have to tell you, that is really changing dramatically. If you're going to do a high-end professional event like the biennial, this is a technology that we would look at. But for you guys today, for your actual individual events that you might be putting on at the churches, or actually the Mass itself, and apologies because I grew up Catholic, so I stumble on my words occasionally, but I would love you to start thinking about things like Facebook Live. Facebook Live, a couple of things I want everybody to know about it is it was announced a little while ago, about I think it's 3 or 4 months now, and I grabbed a screen grab because it is true, it does so much better on the phone. One thing to note, Facebook actually just announced that Facebook Live is coming to desktop, so you will be able to do this from your desktop. And I bring this up because I thought about this from a ministry perspective as well, is if you wanted to have a roundtable discussion with 4 or 5 people, or if you want to meet as a group, Facebook Live may be something for you to start thinking about. A couple of things to note about Facebook Live is it literally does live broadcast. And what it does is it allows, very much like our call today, like a webinar, you can absolutely look at it online. And I'm going to jump over to the web, because this is why I love doing webinars, is because I can go right out onto the browser, and you can see as an example, this is the page. But what essentially you will have the ability to do is broadcast live like we are today, but using your camera. And like I said, right now it would be off of the phone. And you will be able to actually take questions through here. So you absolutely can do that. And I wanted to show you just a really quick picture that I pulled up. For those of you who have not seen this before, this is what it would look like on your phone. So this is a note I would love to make sure that you catch, is to run a Facebook Live as a business or as your congregation. You want to do it on your Facebook page, your business page. You need to have what's called the Pages app. And that is specific to your, like I said, business pages. And I'll load the United Mission as a vehicle page in a moment. But here you will see, if you were to actually open up even your personal Facebook right now and go to post, you'll see this icon that looks like a little head with the kind of circles around it, and that means that you are ready to go live. It will then take you to a screen that looks just like this, that will actually say you want to title it before you go live, and then you can actually start broadcasting live. So it is amazing. And if you're going to do this as an individual, it's the exact same process, except the difference really is, just so everybody's sort of on the same page, is that when you do it as an individual, it will load on your individual page like mine. So if I did one as an individual, you can see if the icon were here, I would load it into here, whereas if I am doing it as United Mission as the vehicle, it would then load onto this page, and I have to be logged on here as the business or as the organization, as we would say here. But just in general, from a desktop perspective, that little icon will be coming soon to the desktops. So if you would like to, you would even be able to use your cameras in your computer to do that. So this is really exciting information. One more thing I just want to point out, if you are curious to know what's going on live in the world right now, Facebook does provide you with a live map, and you can see it's facebook.com/live map, and you can actually see where people are actually broadcasting live. So if you'd like to just get a chance to experience this, when you look here, it'll show you all the different ones. I have to be careful going over it because it will pick up the volume. And like any audio, just so you understand, there is not going to be any audio played until you approve that. So I just want to make sure everybody has an idea. But this is a really great little tool, and it's free. There is one note, and I'm not sure if I mentioned it already, but the restriction, just to understand, is that it is a 30-minute live, so you can't do anything of substantial length. Doing things with substantial length, you're going to want to look at that live stream application that I mentioned earlier. Another tool that I thought I would bring up, and this is actually the predecessor to the tool that we'll talk about next, is this is called Meerkat. And Meerkat was one of the first to do live streaming from the phone, and it is exactly the same thing that I just talked about with Facebook Live, except again, this is only available from a phone. So this is mobile live streaming completely. And the one that most of you may have heard more about is something called Periscope. Periscope and Meerkat are sort of like the bigger competitors, and Periscope is the one most people have heard of the most because it is owned by Twitter. And same concept, it is from the phone. And what's been really interesting and some really smart ideas for all of you to be thinking about and using this is these are, again, great for the actual services, but I also encourage you to look at these around things that you might be doing in the community or anything from a mission perspective. I bring that up because what's been really interesting is I do a lot of speaking around the country, and I recently was at a conference and someone said to me, my grandchild is in Israel right now, and I've been watching because they send notices about when they're going to be on Periscope. So what's been really interesting is me seeing how so many organizations are starting to use this in the nonprofit and community outreach, because it's a great way to get people excited, or for those people who couldn't travel with you to be able to see, obviously depending upon your cell service, but Periscope, Facebook Live, Meerkat, all three of these tools have been a way for people to feel like they can be a part of a trip, part of an outreach. So I really want you to think a little bit about this as an opportunity to include those who could with you someplace. What's also interesting about them is all the data is saved, so you can absolutely download your mobile events and put them up on a website later, put them up on YouTube later, so you do have the ability to provide all of this information. So these are all, by the way, guys, free services. So for me, these are at the beginning because they're easy, they're accessible, and they're cost effective. A couple of others that I want to show you are, these are more of the paid elements. So these are going to be exactly sort of what I mentioned at the very beginning, is that you can live stream, And you could also use this as a fundraising opportunity. So tools like Ustream and Livestream, some of them have built into it where people can register for the event and actually get a username and password and then be able to watch the events live. And again, I mentioned this earlier, I've used this personally at conferences, and we've charged people a lesser rate because they couldn't travel, but they seem to get the same value. So here's an example of, live stream system is they have it connected to the camera so that if you are doing a larger broadcast, you would be able to do that through this type of setup. And then, of course, you can see that, no surprise, they don't want to be left out in what's going on with Meerkat and Periscope and Facebook. They also have provided a phone version. And one last thing I wanted to show everyone, which I think is, again, pretty exciting, and I like to come to the web to be able to look at things, is if you are interested, you can watch some of this information and demos on their website. But I also wanted to make sure that everyone knew that YouTube does have one as well. All you would need to do is see I'm logged in as myself, and you can actually come here, and inside, I don't know how many of you are using YouTube now, but if you have a YouTube channel for your particular church or your area, you may want to look at the ability to do this. So you definitely can get into their Studio Creator, and they actually now have a live stream feature as well. So no surprise, everybody's sort of getting into this live stream area because video is becoming more and more prevalent in every platform. Even on LinkedIn was announced yesterday that the influencers are going to be uploading more video. People watch longer videos on their mobile devices than they do on their computers because they're waiting, they're using it to kill time. There's lots of reasons why, but just in general, more and more the smaller screen has become the place to watch the extended content. And so with that, I've already seen a few questions coming in, so thank you. And I just am going to open up our questions box and see how many. So please feel free to add any questions on any of the things that I just discussed. Okay, so Dorothea asks, are the slides available for download? And yes, I will have given a copy of the slides to Tina. So as she has mentioned, we are recording, and so I can also make the slides available for review as well. The second question comes from Michelle. Michelle asks, are all three of these live stream possibilities open to all viewers, or could there be used for a set group for meetings? Great question. So, just as an FYI, with any of the features, you want to keep in mind that, first off, you definitely want to look at what changes they make. There is oftentimes in each of the tools where you understand that they will make changes to that. But yes, for Facebook, and that's why I showed you that live map, actually, you will notice that when you broadcast, and I'm actually going to pull mine up here. So give me one quick second, because I actually want to double check this. I'm pretty sure with the Facebook, like anything else, it asks you for permissions. So with our live feed, there is an option for you to put it into either friends or friends only or friends accept or only me. So if you are using Facebook, one of the things I would recommend is, if you're not overly familiar, and this will only be for your personal one, Michelle, so when we talk about Facebook and posting here, when you have your live stream, this is the options that you see here. are also on the phone for the live stream. So one of the things that I always recommend to people, specifically with Facebook, is that you kind of put people into a list or a grouping. If you notice here, there'll be more options. How many of you have used something like putting people into a grouping? So this way you can actually set the privacy on a live video, so for a meeting, etc. I believe the same is true for Periscope. I will absolutely double check. But I will always want to tell you that anything digital, just be careful. Remember that sometimes, depending upon the item that you're looking at, you know, we always have to remember, I'm just grabbing a photo here, but keep in mind that some options are always available for people. So even though you've marked it as private, just keep that in mind, that sometimes people can get around that. So that's one thing I always tell people about the live streaming, but that is a really great question. And then Roger said, you're assuming that we're all familiar with this stuff already. Great point, Roger. So if you are not familiar with some of this, feel free to go ahead and clarify some of the questions that you might want me to look at. That's why I love the live events, because I can happily go on the web and show you some of the information. So Roger continues to say, I see the possibility of all this, but I'm not familiar. What is all of this stuff? So if I can kind of step back and see if I can answer Roger's question. At this point, many people are, and I guess I could ask this question too, and maybe you guys could help me out because we didn't set up polls for this, but if you could put it in the questions box. Is everyone familiar with Facebook? So maybe I could get at least a general consensus of yes. All right, awesome, thank you. So I see a lot of yeses to Facebook, and no, I'm not really familiar with Facebook. So I actually wanted to put Facebook Live in because I figured Facebook was the one platform most people are familiar with. So if you're not familiar with Facebook, let me jump over. I can actually, so in general, with Facebook as a platform, individuals have a place that they can call their own, kind of a way for them to document and save their life. You'll see that people will post, you know, photos of themselves, their family, so and they can actually decide, you know, who sees things, the public, their friends, so they can restrict who sees things. They can also actually post photos and videos. So what Facebook Live and Periscope and Meerkat is doing is basically, here's another way I could ask this question, Roger, is are you familiar with the idea of just, you know, like television broadcast? Is everybody familiar with that? And I could assume the consensus here would be yes. But the thing that I want to mention is with live streaming, essentially what we're getting to do is we're all getting to have the ability to be a broadcaster, but we're doing it today not so much with, let's say, a camera, but we're doing it, so we don't need this anymore. This kind of concept where you would see a cameraman point something at someone on a stage or someone in a sports studio and then have to be able to connect to the internet. We don't even need to do this anymore. If everybody has a smartphone, an Android or an iPhone, and yes, I'm being specific that way, Blackberries don't exist in our world anymore, most of us with even the 3G and the 4G plans that we have today, we all have the ability in our smartphones to actually be live broadcasters. So essentially, this device right here, we no longer actually need to tell the world, or to one of Michelle's questions earlier, or a select group of people, I want you to experience what I'm experiencing in real time. And I'm hoping that helps explain that a little bit more. And that's why I brought up one of the colleagues that I met at the show was watching their grandchild live. So basically, to kind of step back, is on our phones, you would have to install an app. An app is exactly what you're probably used to if you have a smartphone, is you have the actual text. A text is an app on your phone that allows you to send messages over the texting digitally. Let's put it that way. But we also have on our phones, most of us have something to listen to music. That is also an app. So what Periscope and Meerkat are just that. They are apps. And if you are an Android, you would go to your Google Play Store and you would download that app. So I'm actually just Googled it so everybody can see it here, but you would literally, for iTunes on your phone, you would go into the app library and download this. And by creating an account and receiving access to where the live broadcast is coming from, you can watch a live broadcast. By creating an account, you can also just decide that you're going to live broadcast. So any of you right now could download this app and start doing a live broadcast right now. And even if you have no one that you've sent it to, because there's a live map, someone could be watching it. So I'm hoping that maybe steps us a little back and lets us understand it a little bit more. By what you would put in the detail of the broadcast, that is what people can search for and find you. But to Michelle's question earlier, it's also some things where you want to make sure that you are keeping things private. So there's a little lock there on the Periscope app. And so you would be able to set up some restrictions to who can and can't see live broadcasts. So I hope that helps answer Roger's question a little bit more. And I think the key word here is the word broadcast. And I think that's really important, that we all understand that broadcasting live essentially means we're giving anyone access to see what we're sharing, provided they've either searched for and found it or we provided them a link. Okay, so one of the other questions I just want to ask, there was a little higher up, and you guys, thank you so much for all the great questions. Erica asked, what are the logistics of live streaming a message remotely in case of inclement weather? That's a great question, Erica. Considering I live in the Northeast, I feel that. As long as you have cell service, I know this is going to sound strange, that is what I would definitely recommend, is that if your audience, your congregation or your followers, your group, or Sunday school program, whatever it is you're doing, is signed up, you could email them and let them know you will broadcast a message live and let them know about something. I would say that Facebook would be a great place for that, because most people are probably on Facebook. I have people from 14 to 70 on Facebook, so that may be the broadest platform. And you would be able to do that from the app on your phone. And that is a really smart idea, because that is the one thing nobody likes to turn off, especially during inclement weather, is their social media keeps them distracted. So that's a really, really great question. Okay, so I have a couple more questions. Will this be offered at the biennial important next year? Well, Dorothea, let me tell you, I'm trying to talk them into it. We are looking at it as an option, but nothing has been officially decided, but it is something that we talked about as something that is the United Mission vehicle. So our vehicle for biennial would be technology. Maybe Tina can chat with that or maybe put that, but it is a really great question. It's something that I've mentioned and I think would be a lot of fun for those who can't necessarily get there. Maybe you don't stream the whole thing, but we can stream portions of it to kind of pull people into, you know, the opportunities. But there's nothing like being live at an event. I understand that. So would you use this for your actual morning worship service? Michelle asks. Great question. So my personal opinion is yes. And one of the things that I would think about for all of you is to think a little bit about your audience. One of the things I talked with many people about is maybe pairing up some younger individual members with some older, just to get them familiar with some of this. One of the other things I mentioned in our last time we did this webinar was even taking a portion of maybe one of your services and showing people, okay, does everybody have their cell phone? This is the one time you're allowed to take it out and actually have them open their phone. And that way you're all together in a community. If someone needs help, there's other people they can turn to. But I will tell you, Michelle, I think this is a really great way, especially for those who may be stuck at home and can't get to morning worship and they want to be a part of it. I think it's so important. I have a grandmother who's not quite, you know, into this, but she, you know, she watches on TV, and this is the technology for now. So I would recommend that this be a conversation that you have with people in your community and ask if this is something they'd be interested in. It is a way to stay more connected, especially if they know this is going to be done every morning. If they can't get there some mornings, they can feel like they stay connected. And this is what I want to say about technology as a whole, is as much as it can frustrate people to learn new things, it can also make us feel more connected than ever before. So next question is, Shirley mentions, yes, and Skype and Google Talk also allow live streams for free. That is correct, Shirley. Those are in my next section. So we'll talk a little bit about those next. Should you ask people not to record church functions? That is a fabulous question, and I think this is something that you want to discuss and explore. As I've talked to different individuals as part of American Baptist Church in the different events I've been to. This is definitely something people have mentioned. This is a case-by-case basis. So for example, there may be some things they would mention they do not feel comfortable, outings or events or certain functions they may want. So I do think this is something that needs to be discussed, and I think it's a good idea that you bring it up even if you're not comfortable, everyone, because you have people who are maybe doing it or wanting to do it and aren't going to ask for permission at this point, not because they don't want to, it's just because you have a generation that is now so absorbed in this world, they may not think anything of it. So bringing this up as a part of a discussion is a great way to set some boundaries for your particular church. So I think that's a great question. Carla asks, I have a Facebook app in my Android smartphone. Is Facebook Live something I need to add to my current Facebook account, or is it something that already exists? Carla, it's already there. If you, and you mentioned you're on an Android, so if you all give me just one quick second, I will show you the Android Facebook Live so you can actually see what the image looks like, because I personally am an iPhone. So let me show you. It will be by default right when you start your app. It should be right there for you. So when you are looking at your Android, you should now see something with Facebook that says Live. And it's still the same icon, that head with the circles around it. But if you do not have it, you may have to upgrade your version of the Facebook app on your phone, but it is already built into or rolled out in your recent version of your Facebook app on your phone. So it's a great question. Okay, more questions coming in, so thank you all. On Facebook Live, how do I select before going live the people I want to see my broadcast? So again, I happen to be an iPhone user, but this right there is a little hard to see. Let me see if I can get this zoomed in for everybody so you can see. I love the big pictures. Okay, so hopefully I've zoomed that in enough for everybody to see. Right here, this is the Android. See here, it's hard to see it, but once you hit live, you'll then see this button here that says public, and there's a little tiny arrow there you would hit to drop down, and it will actually give you the options of friends, friends only. So that is how you'll be able to do that. Jimmy asks, if we use Periscope or Facebook Live to broadcast, does each person watching the broadcast need to have the appropriate app? Jimmy, what a smart question. I love that question. So the answer is, for those on Facebook, they do not need the app. Facebook Live will be available on Facebook. Give me one quick second. I'm actually going to pull up a page that has a couple of live broadcasts that we've done. It will actually be right on the page for the person to see. So you don't have to worry about that. And it actually will be there under the video section as well. So the live broadcast will be on Facebook. But with Periscope, right now, I believe that you do have to be looking at it on the phone. I will double check because one of the greatest things right now is more and more of the platforms are opening things up so that you can watch things on the desktop. So that is the one thing I do want to mention, is that more and more they're setting it up. So this is Periscope. So, there may be a desktop feed that they are going to allow, but I will have to double check. I believe Periscope is phone only, and they would need that app. I don't want to say definitively because I haven't done that one in a little while. Okay, so we've got a couple more questions, but I'm just going to go on a little bit to some more of our items and then come back to your questions. And as mentioned, everything here is being recorded, so you can go back and listen to it after. So the point that was made a few minutes ago is there are definitely some other places to do some smaller groups. Skype are great for group and small meetings. So the ones that I went over, the broadcasting concept is you're trying to do something larger. You don't necessarily want, just like you guys today, we're on GoToWebinar, not GoToMeeting. And Tina mentioned, everybody has to ask questions through a questions box. With all the other tools that we just talked about, there's places for people to comment and leave information, but they can't really join and be a part of the conversation. So Skype, Google Hangouts, GoToMeeting, Join Me, these are a couple of different places for you to run smaller group meetings, where instead of you typing the questions in the questions box, you'd be able to share your screens, your camera, you'd be able to talk openly on the mic, and you would be able to take part in the conversation. So that is, for me, one of the determining factors of why would I use one over the other. Live streaming is more about that word broadcast, where someone is really watching, maybe interacting, like you would see below a news feed on even like CNBC or Fox or whatever, where someone would be able to comment, but they can't really just pipe in and be a part of it. They can only feel like they're a part of it because they can comment or like something. But with these smaller tools like Skype, Google Hangouts, GoToMeeting and Join Me, you really can have a group conversation. Now, there are pros and cons to each, and that means those are going to be things like how many people are allowed on a group meeting. And if anyone was a part of our Google Hangout last year, we all know that there's a limitation on that. So you have up to 10 people, I believe, is the number that you're allowed to have in a Hangout. They can still be recorded and pushed to YouTube, so you can actually record them, but it is not the same as the live stream that I showed in YouTube. Skype, the same thing. There's a benefit to that as well. Everybody can talk, share. You can screen share your computer monitor, which I love. Just like we're doing now, we can do the same thing in GoToMeeting. GoToMeeting has a few extra features that Skype does not have. So the recording functionality is really nice, and that is also available in a Join Me. So if you have a small group of people that you want to get together on a web meeting and you want to record it for various reasons, then you might look at a GoToMeeting or a Join Me for recording purposes, but everybody can have a voice. Also, these two tools, the GoToMeeting and the Join Me's, do have the screen sharing opportunities as well. Join Me is presenter only, and GoToMeeting, and this is the free version of Join Me, is presenter only. With GoToMeeting, they do have a free version now, which they didn't used to. So they do have a free version. But with something like this, when it's a group and you pay for it, you can switch off and give different people access to the screen. So there's a little bit more functionality. So there's pros and cons to each. One thing to note, whether it be GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar, they don't record the actual camera. So they can record your screen, but they cannot record the actual camera. If I turn my camera on right now, which I'm not going to because I have no makeup on, you'll find that you would see me through the GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar, but the recording of today wouldn't pick up the actual camera. So there is another benefit to, with the live stream, you are literally live streaming and using the camera, and it is recording the camera. So those are a couple of things that I wanted to bring up, and I've seen a few more questions come in. And this is sort of the items that we were planning on talking about today, so please go ahead and continue to put your questions in, and I will see what else I can answer for you. And I have one more section just to talk a little bit about, which is, you know, some sharing the video online that I wanted to share with you for protecting it and password protecting some items. So I'm going to go back to our questions, and we have another question is, Michael asks, is this a technology that many moving parts, always expanding and changing? And I, Michael, believe that you're talking about our live streaming, our Periscope, and etc. Will we keep updating on current changes and upgrades or services? So anything digitally based at this point, I think we all have to probably say we're going to understand, whether we like it or not, is that it's going to change. The interfaces get upgraded, they add new features. So when we talk about always expanding and changing, I think the answer to that is definitively yes. If not, they'll become like a MySpace and they won't exist anymore. But I also feel as though, Michael, that, and this is my perspective, it's also why you have to pay attention to which players are doing well, because there is some competition across, obviously, and Facebook Live may have come out third, Meerkat was first, Periscope was second, but because Facebook has such a giant audience, their live streaming may overtake others. And I think the platforms themselves and the buy-in that we have from people on those platforms is going to make a difference. Also, the push of those tools, whether people want them or not, will also appear there. Okay. Catherine asks, will these programs work on Windows phones? Also, you mentioned phones and PCs. Can you use iPad or tablet? So a lot of option there. The Windows phones, you do have to check. Some are not available on Windows Phone. And I would say most likely Facebook is. And I would do some quick Googling on that, Catherine, to find out which of the platforms. But I would say Android and iPhone are definitely the ones things get pushed to first. So if it's not available, it probably will become available. And then some of them are coming to the desktop. So as I mentioned earlier, Facebook has actually announced that live streaming is coming to desktops, so it will be available on the PCs. As far as the iPad, it depends on if the app is actually available. That was actually a very smart question, because not everything is available on an iPad. Now, it is something that you can double check. Sometimes on the iPads they allow you to install the iPhone versions and then they just run smaller, but that is one thing that I do want to mention, and here's just a quick Google search showing the Periscope, you know, for iPad. So how to install Periscope on the iPad. The other thing, excuse me, that I didn't mention that you also may want to think about, and I apologize, Roger, I'm going to apologize up front because you may not know this one, but some of you might. I do want you all to understand that if anyone has a GoPro, these are those cameras that you see kids or adults wear on their helmets when they ski or on their helmets when they bike. GoPro does also have live stream. Now, I know you're asking, why is she bringing this up now? But I have actually been seeing a lot of people use GoPros at events more. So you may want to look at this technology and what application you'd put in it. So Catherine, I sort of took your question and added another piece of technology to it. But this is one of the things that I wanted to also mention, because GoPro, you know, integration with some different streaming applications. So that is something else for all of you to be thinking about as an opportunity. If you're not thinking you really want to carry your phone, you may also look at something like a GoPro. Okay, Elizabeth asks, what are some best practices with regard to using these technologies for communication? For example, when is it better to use written text and or graphics as opposed to live stream video? I love that question. I watch videos online but often have limited time. Written text and graphics seem easier to skim quickly. Elizabeth, it's such a great question. I believe it's going to depend on a few things. One, the audience. Is the audience that you're preparing the information for someone that would prefer to watch something or prefer to skim? And some, I would say, maybe both. I bring this up because I was thinking about something like from a children's ministry perspective. If you're trying to teach something, sometimes video can do a better job, especially if you're trying to show how to. I know personally when I skim the how-to elements, I feel like there's a step I miss. So I think it would be something where maybe a how-to, that's always a good best practice for videos. If you're doing training of others, it might be great for role-playing. So I do think for me it's sort of on a case-by-case basis of, will the video explain something better? Another thing is, if I were trying to teach someone the technology, and I would often use video because I can show video, the step-by-step, as opposed to, you know, reading it and feeling like the person would have missed something. So it's a great, really great question. Okay, so Janet asked a question, and Janet, I love it. You're a little plant for me. Thank you. She said, can this be uploaded to a website later? And I think you're talking about video. And the answer to that is many of the tools that we've talked about do provide you with a download feature, and then you can always re-upload them into other technologies. So that was actually the last thing I wanted to mention, is a couple of the places that if you are going to use the live stream tools and you don't want them to stay up permanently, you can always download them and then upload them into other platforms if you would prefer. YouTube does have the ability for you to, we talked about live stream, but let's say you are really comfortable, you're going to live stream something on Periscope, and you know that your audience is never going to get a chance, they're not going to download the app, you know, 20% of them are going, no, just put it up on YouTube. You can do that. So that is one of the things I wanted to mention. Two other streaming services that people often forget about are Vimeo and Wistia. Now Vimeo also provides you with the ability to password protect, so you can actually make an entire playlist. This can be great for training materials. So going back to some of the questions that were asked earlier, you may have done a live stream with a small group, or you may have done a go-to meeting or a join me. And then after, you may want to upload those into a series. And so Vimeo or YouTube or Wistia will give you the ability to create playlists and organize videos into groupings to make it easier for training purposes. If you were preparing, like if you were trying to journal something, and what I mean is from the beginning to the end, so preparing for a trip to do, let's say, Habitat for Humanity. If you have a whole bunch of people, you might want to document that. And you might want to do that in segments, and you could do that as a playlist on YouTube or a section on Vimeo. There's so many different ways to leverage the technology. So I wanted to make sure that you all knew that what's nice about this, for those people who are uncomfortable with some of the phone technology, the YouTube, the Vimeo, and the Wistia is all available to be loaded into a website, and it will self-adjust and stream according to the platform, meaning if the person visits the website from an iPad, it will adjust and stream for the speed of the iPad versus the speed of the phone versus the speed of the desktop. Orlin said, and thank you so much for sharing this, Orlin. This was awesome. I am watching the webinar on my smartphone while in bed per doctor's orders. Thank you, Orlin. I love that you shared that with everybody. He mentioned the GoToWebinar app works great. So really appreciate you sharing that so everybody knows that the apps are great. And I have personally done GoToMeetings on my cell phone, and I agree. So I appreciate you sharing that. Okay, so do you need a particular internet speed to use the various meeting groups? So to answer your question, and they're talking about these, you do need, I would say at this point, let's, Janet, say we're not going to be on dial-up, but believe it or not, with Skype, I use it on my phone, just like Orlin mentioned he was watching the webinar on his smartphone, but I do actually do Skype from my iPad while I am traveling on the regular G3 and G4 connection. So would I say it will be the most, like when I actually also want to tell everybody I do teach a class every week, and I've done them on the side of the road with the boxes from, I have a Verizon box. So as long as you have a decent internet connection as far as what you would normally have for a cell phone, that is at this point really all you need. So Tina, we have about 3 minutes left, and I would love to invite you back on our line to help us close out our call if you're still there.
I am indeed. I want to thank everyone because they were a lot of really great questions today. We will be posting this video as well as the slideshow on the website, and you will all receive an email when that is available for you to review and share with others who wanted to be here but weren't able to attend. Any further questions that you have, you can send them to my attention, tina.turner@abc-usa.org, and I'd be happy to try to answer them or pass them along to Jennifer's for her review as well. So thank you again so much. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for sharing your time with us today. So many great options. I can see a lot of potential in this. The biennial committee has discussed, as Jennifer mentioned, being able to live stream some events. There's some logistics that we still need to look at to see about that being possible, as well as potential licensing issue with some of the performers that are at these events. So it is something that we're considering, but we don't have anything to share at this time.
And I appreciate that you brought that up, Tina, because there's a lot of conversation about that right now with live stream events where people do it at concerts. So it is it's totally very interesting what's happening with our world. So thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you again, everyone. And if you have a chance, please visit the United Mission website, umisthevehicle.org, or the Facebook page, United Mission is the Vehicle.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week.